You step on the scale and you are 4 pounds heavier than yesterday. You did not eat 14,000 extra calories yesterday, and that is not what is happening. Your rings do not fit this morning. Your face is puffy. Your ankles are swollen by the end of the day. Your jeans, forget about it. Fit one day, the next day, not so much. But you are actually doing the work. You are tracking your calories, you are exercising, you are moving your body, and the scale is not moving, not in the right direction at least. This is a common complaint I hear in midlife women that they're doing all the things. They're eating well, they're exercising, they haven't changed their diet, and they cannot lose weight. So you have been told the following: it's hormones, maybe your metabolism is slow, and those things can be true. You have been told it's the lack of willpower, probably not. And you've also been blamed because you're aging. But what if those things are not the truth? What if a meaningful part of what is happening on your scale is not fat at all? I'm Dr. Stasha-Gae Roberts, nurse practitioner, veteran, BHRT certified, and the founder of Compassion Primary Care. So, this is week 3 of a 4 part series on mast cell activation and histamine receptor patterns in midlife women. If you have not seen weeks 1 and 2, the links are in the description. Week 1 covered the 3 a.m. heart pounding cascade. Week 2 covered fragrance reactions, spicy food, and the dermographism self test. Today, I want to teach you something most clinicians have never been trained to recognize. For a meaningful subset of women in midlife, the stuck weight pattern is not primarily about calories or willpower or even fat. It is about fluid retention driven by histamine, hormonal mast cell triggering, and inflammation inside the fat tissue itself. You are not broken and you are not failing. And you do not have to prove you are struggling to be taken seriously here. So let's discuss this further. Body fat is energy dense. Even by older estimates of how many calories make up a pound of fat, a 4 pound overnight weight gain would require an enormous caloric excess in 24 hours. More than likely, that did not happen. And that is not what is happening. So, what exactly is the scale measuring? It's actually measuring fluid. And here is why. So we have receptors in our body called H1 receptors, and they sit on the lining of our blood vessels. When histamine binds to these H1 receptors, your blood vessels become more permeable, and fluid is actually leaking out of the vessels and into the tissue that surrounds them. Your tissue holds the fluid. The scale registered it as weight. So, in a woman with chronic mast cell hyperactivity, histamine is being released throughout the day at levels that never really require an allergic reaction, but are enough to keep H1 receptors lightly stimulated. The result is constant low grade fluid retention. The 4 pound overnight gain, the puffy face in the morning, the ankles that are swollen by evening, the rings that fit one day and not the next. That is fluid moving in and out of your tissue based on histamine activity. That is not fat, that is chemistry. Now, I want to tell you about the part of this nobody is really talking about. So, research has shown that mast cells accumulate inside fat tissue in higher numbers in women who carry excess weight. They concentrate in fibrotic areas of fat where they sustain a chronic inflammatory state. That inflamed fat tissue is metabolically active in ways that work against you. So it maintains insulin resistance, it signals the body to hold more fluid, and it keeps low grade inflammation circulating throughout your entire body. Animal research has shown that mice without mast cells fed the exact same diet as mice with normal mast cells end up significantly less weight gain, smaller fat cells, and better blood sugar regulation. What that means for you in midlife is that the chemistry inside your fat tissue may be fighting the effort you are putting in. So you can eat clean, you can exercise, and you can do everything right. And the inflammation in your fat tissue may be the thing keeping the scales stuck. So this is not a willpower problem. This is actually a chemistry problem. So, in week one of this series, I told you that progesterone actually starts to decline at around the age of 35. Not 45, not 50, but 35. And progesterone stabilizes mast cells. Estrogen activates them. So, by the time you reach your late 30s and early 40s, that hormonal balance that kept your mast cells calm has already started to fail. Histamine release goes up, fluid retention goes up, adipose tissue inflammation goes up. The weight that used to easily come off at age 32 almost becomes impossible to lose at 42. And it's not because your willpower failed, not because your metabolism slowed, but because the mast cell stabilization, the hormones that help with mast cell stabilization, are not working in your favor. This is why restoring progesterone where it is clinically indicated is often one of the most impactful interventions I use for women with stuck weight. I am BHRT certified. Bioidentical micronized progesterone is the form most commonly used in integrative care. It is individualized based on labs and clinical evaluation. It is not a protocol, it's personalized care. So, the interventions that work for stuck weight in mast cell driven women look different from what standard weight loss advice often tells you. Mast cell stabilization with quercetin, vitamin C, and luteolin reduces baseline histamine release. Many women see fluid drops within several weeks. Histamine aware eating reduces the dietary contribution. So, again, aged cheese, fermented foods, leftovers, red wine, certain fish, these are not bad foods, but they add to the histamine load. Targeted H1 blockade under clinical guidance for women whose pattern responds to it. H2 blockade is short term only. Two additional clinical tools worth knowing about: low dose naltrexone, often called LDN. This is a prescription medication used in a fraction of the dose used for its original purpose. At low doses, it appears to modulate the immune system and help to reduce inflammation. It is used often in integrative care for autoimmune patterns, chronic inflammation, and increasingly for mast cell driven conditions. In my practice, LDN is one of the tools I consider for women whose stuck weight pattern is driven by significant inflammation. The other is amloxanox. This is an emerging area of integrative medicine. Small early phase human trials have suggested it may improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation in adipose tissue. It is not the standard of care, but neither is LDN. It's being used off label and it's actually making a difference in some women. So, for some women whose stuck weight is clearly inflammation driven, it may become part of an individualized care plan in years ahead. Lymphatic support like rebounding, brushing, and manual lymphatic drainage also helps the body actually remove retained fluid out of the tissue. Gentle movement often works better than intense exercise. Heat, sweat, and acetylcholine release from intense workouts can actually activate mast cells. Many mast cell driven women find that softer, more consistent movement produces better results than the more is better approach, which I know goes against what we think, and progesterone restoration when clinically indicated. One more clinical note worth mentioning briefly: if your stuck weight is concentrated in your lower body and does not respond to standard approaches, lipedema is worth evaluating for. It is a separate condition that often overlaps with mast cell activation in many women and is dramatically underdiagnosed. So, here is what I want you to leave with. If you have spent years trying to lose weight and feeling like your body was fighting you, please hear me. Your body is not broken, it is actually responding to chemistry. The chemistry can be addressed, the fluid can be released, and the scale can actually move in the right direction. You do not have to keep blaming your willpower for a problem that may be living in your immune system. If the stuck weight pattern in this video sounds like what you have been living with, I would love for you to book a free, no pressure discovery call. My signature Finally Answered program is a 3-month root cause investigation built for women who are done leaving appointments without answers. The discovery call is free, it is a real conversation with me, and it's not a sales call. Book your call, the link is in the description. Compassion Primary Care serves women across the entire state of Florida through virtual care, with home visits and in person care at the Wellness Center of Ellington for those living in the Tampa Bay and Suncoast region. So, next week, I am going to close this series. I will pull the full receptor framework together, talk about why so many clinicians have been trained to miss this, and give you specific language to use with your provider when you go in asking for the right evaluation. This is not your 20s. This is not your new normal. And you do not have to prove that you are struggling to be taken seriously here. I'm Dr. Stasha-Gae Roberts. Thank you for trusting me with your time today and listening to this series. Please like, follow, share with a woman that you know who needs to hear this. And I look forward to assisting you in nursing your journey to lasting wellness.